Thank you. Committee, thank you. Guests, thank you. We are on a very tight schedule. I appreciate any conversations. You want to take them out in the hall, that's wonderful. Very much appreciated. It is 9:30, and we would like to get started because we do lose this room this morning. Committee, again, we do have a couple of senators missing. I'm going to wait for bill introductions again, out of respect for the committee, okay? And we will go ahead and reopen the hearing on House Bill 2036. And Amelia, a very brief overview. She does wonderful. Thank you very much. But I just want to make sure that everybody knows what we're working on. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Just as a reminder, House Bill number 2036, as amended by the House Committee of the Whole, would provide a property tax exemption for homestead property of certain disabled veterans. The bill would provide a property tax exemption for homestead property owned and actually and regularly occupied and used predominantly as a residence by a disabled veteran or any surviving spouse thereof, commencing in tax year 2024, to the extents that are enumerated in the bill. And there were some additional provisions that if an individual was granted an exemption pursuant to this section, they would not be eligible for a refund under the Homestead Property Tax Refund Act. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions? Senator Petty.
Amelia, what does the word predominantly mean in this bill when you say predominantly used as a residence?
Amelia, do you mind? Oh.
Is there a definition for that?
There's not a definition in the bill itself. I would have to review some case law to see how that is interpreted, or whether there's any other statutes that are relevant that might define that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll continue with the hearing. First up is Thomas Hollis. He's not going to be here. Committee, I'll refer, the roads are very treacherous this morning. I will refer you to his written testimony. Michael Ogle. Welcome to the committee.
I am currently a veteran service officer with the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I advocate for veterans, ensuring they get their deserved service-connected compensation and health care. My office is in the Topeka VA Hospital. First, I would like to say that my written testimony is endorsed by the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1650 in Shawnee County, VFW members across the state of Kansas, the Vietnam Veterans of America, Kansas, and the Marine Corps League, Department of Kansas. I am not a Vietnam veteran, nor have I ever been a Marine, but these service organizations have chosen to endorse my written testimonies that captures the sentiment of the Kansas veteran. The veteran is the citizen that provides the blessings of liberty and security that enable the government to serve the people. I'm happy to be here right now in this moment providing testimony to this committee. HB 2036 is well-written legislation that honors the veteran for their specific sacrifices. It will greatly improve the quality of life for veterans in Kansas. Veterans across the state of Kansas have reached out to me asking me to provide this testimony in support of HB 2036. It is my belief that HB 2036 not only honors the sacrifices that veterans have made, but provides them hope that government is doing what it can to help them recover from service-connected trauma and injury and disease. Hope is most key to a veteran's recovery. It does not matter if the veteran is dismembered, suffers mental distress or PTSD, or has cancer from toxic exposure. Hope that their sacrifices were not in vain.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
We ask that you not read your testimony. We do have your written testimony. We would like you to convey your information on this. If everybody were to read their testimony, we would run out of time again on the committee. So could you please give us the highlights and your
Absolutely.
comments on why you support the legislation? Thank you.
I encourage this legislative body to pass HB 2036 because it will save lives in Kansas. I would encourage this body to include Gold Star families as their veteran has paid the ultimate sacrifice in support of our nation. Okay, this part is specifically, I would also include the veterans' risk to toxic exposures is different than most first responders. The common denominator for veterans in toxic exposure risk areas from herbicide locations to burn pit locations is conceded long-term exposure to dangerous levels of dioxins. This exposure includes exposure to TCDD, the world's deadliest dioxin, according to the World Health Organization. Exposure can cause liver disease, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease. TCDD is also a carcinogen causing cancer in multiple organs. Additionally, there is a recognized risk of neurological disorders, including Parkinson's, dementia, and mood disorders. There are many presumptive illnesses the VA has recognized due to this exposure, but frankly, the World Health Organization, CDC, and many other governmental and non-governmental organizations have come to conclusions that there are other risks besides what is on the VA presumptive list. Military veterans, this is from the ALS Association, regardless of branch, service, era in which they served or whether they served during a time of peace or war, are at greater risk from dying from ALS than if they had not served in the military. For reasons unknown, veterans are in fact twice as likely to be diagnosed with ALS as the general population. Because of the incredibly alarming risk posed by the citizen joining the military, the Veterans Administration has recognized ALS as a presumptive disease for anyone serving longer than 90 days in the United States military. The men and women who have served honorably, faithfully in defense of the Constitution have carried American values around the globe. The citizens who assume great personal risk are now called veterans of the United States, should be honored by the state of Kansas for their personal sacrifices that ensured prosperity for our great nation. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, sir. Committee questions? Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for being here today. Quick question about the Gold Star. Would that apply to the parents of or the spouse?
Kansas has a definition, I believe, for Gold Star families. They're able to apply for a license tag that says they're Gold Star. I'm not 100% sure what that definition is at this time, but it is someone that's either a parent, the family, or the spouse, the Gold Star family.
But you would like it to be applied, using that definition applied to this
Yes.
legislation? Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? I do have a couple. I appreciate your testimony, your conviction, and agree with the support of the veterans, and appreciate the Gold Star family being added. That hasn't been part of the conversation at all. I do know that the House is working on legislation to help define, as the good senator from Wyandotte County pointed out, the words have meanings and definitions, and there seems to be some confusion as to different terms, even amongst the military branches.
Sure.
So while I understand, we are going to have to deal with that. So I just want you to be aware, and everyone in the room and listening, be aware that we are trying to work through and get it so that we do have the best possible legislation, and so that it does hold up a constitutional challenge.
Thank you.
Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Our next conferee is James Petrick. Welcome to the Tax Committee. Did I pronounce it properly?
Petrick.
Petrick. So I'm going with the short vowels, and it's all long vowels today. Thank you.
It's Slavic. Good morning, Madam Chair, Senators, Representatives, visitors, and my fellow veterans. My name is James Petrick. I'm both a resident taxpayer, registered voter in Leavenworth, and from Leavenworth County and Leavenworth City. To kind of add some clarity with the word predominant, I lived up in Alaska. We were, as a veteran, we had a tax relief or an exemption, and it was for our, it was a primary residence that I couldn't own a house or another house as rental property and double dip on that, in that fashion on that. I'm an employee of the Veterans Administration, and I'm a contract specialist where I do solicitations and do negotiations and rebuild our hospitals one contract at a time. I'd like to thank the Madam Chair for a little bit over, almost a year ago. She came up and provided some clarity over some ambiguities. Also apologize for the grown people up there who kind of vented their frustration in a not so tone, and I admire her handling the grace under pressure. I'm kind of aggravated, disappointed at some of the things that's come up through, not from the state, but mainly everybody sitting there wants to finger point about the veterans. We have enough benefits as it is, and it kind of, I'm more or less fighting for these gentlemen right here, or these veterans right here, because they're mostly on a fixed income. Some are disabled, unemployable, and so what they've got is what they've got. And if we, by some luck of the legislature, we get a 5% raise on one thing, well, there's a 4% someplace else that kind of offsets it. The military more or less took us from our home. We went to various areas, did the bidding of people up at Congress, and we're given the opportunity to come back home. And one of the things that's said to the veterans is, you don't like it, leave. This is my home. This is where I began. This is where I came from. I don't want to leave my home and go to another state that has better benefits. I've signed up and received various newsletters from here in Topeka. Right now, Governor Kelly at the state of the state says that they're sitting on a $2 billion surplus. Various people have testified that we went from 41% of people serving in World War II down to less than 1% that's serving right now. Also been stated that maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3% overall veterans live in the counties. So I don't think that this tax relief, and we could probably change it to relief instead of exemption, because that could be an abrasive term. But I don't think that we're going to bankrupt this state if we do this. Hope everybody's okay. And if we're sitting on a $2 million surplus, somebody did somewhere wrong, because that surplus is generated by us, the taxpayers, everybody in this room. And so they say they're saving it for a rainy day. It's been raining and snowing for the last 3 weeks, so. I stand for any questions if anybody happens to have any.
I would agree with you. It's past raining. It's storming, and it's 3 to 4 billion. Committee, any questions?
Was that accumulated in 1 year, or is this like a snowball that's been at the top of the hill that's been rolling down?
It's not accumulated in 1 year. There's quite a few things that contributed to this. I would say the massive tax increases in 2015 and 17, which I was accused of supporting, I did not support. And I would bring to your attention, you guys may not be aware of this, but the legislature passed legislation that would help 100% disabled veterans. A couple years ago, we increased their personal exemption. We doubled it, okay, from everybody else's. That's a big thing, because you subtract it right away off your income tax. And in this legislation, 2284, it not only doubled the existing, but it increased it for everyone, and then we put the language in so that the 100% disabled would be doubled because that increases every year based on inflation. So it is a big deal. It is a great deal for veterans. It's not even on your radar, is it? So it needs to be on your radar. Yes. Committee, any other questions for this conferee?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leonard Russell?
Thank you for having me here today. I'm a Vietnam veteran, served 1 year and 1.5 days in Vietnam. I left a wife and a 2-week-old baby when I left for Vietnam, not knowing if I'd ever see them again. And to come back after having put my life on the line and all the other veterans who put their lives on the line, and to be treated like we were lowlifes, and we were treated that way. And then everybody thinks we didn't earn anything. Well, we earned it above and beyond the majority of the people sitting in this room. How many of you have served? With a show of hands, how many of you served in combat and fought for our country?
Sir, I would say we are fighting for you right now.
Well-
And I would also say a majority of this committee was not born even during Vietnam. So we
Still,
weren't.
the Middle East wars, you could have went and served in it.
Sure. I appreciate.
But anyway,
You have, I will let you continue to testify, and we are anxious to hear why you want it to defend this bill.
well, I believe the veterans have earned this, and it should be passed. The veterans are bringing money into the state of Kansas. When the veteran gets a disability and gets a compensation for it, that money is paid by the federal government with no tax on it whatsoever. The state of Kansas can't tax it. The Leavenworth County commissioners can't tax it. It is non-taxable. And every time we spend $1, that money is taxed, on sales tax, everything else. We're bringing tax-free money into your state and spending it. I mean, offset the numbers, guys. Figure up how many billions of dollars the veterans are bringing into the state and spending that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the veterans. And if you don't like the veterans, why don't we move the forts out of Leavenworth, out of Wichita, out of Manhattan, and send them to some other state? If you guys don't appreciate us, let's have all the veterans in active duty and everything else, let's get them out of the state so you won't have to put up with them. And that's just the way I feel about it. And I think the veteran, it's not something that's, we earned this, and it should be unanimous in the Senate, just like it was in the House. 123-1, it should pass the same way in the Senate. Thank you.
We stand for questions, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Committee, any questions? Sir, you made a comment into your state. Is this not your state also? Our state?
Yes, it's our state.
Are you from Kansas?
Yes,
Were you raised here?
yes.
That's wonderful. Then it is our state. It's not just, you said it was your state.
It is
Kansas
my
is
state.
my home. I love Kansas. I'm proud of it. And for the veterans, just as I said the last time, myself and this committee has worked very diligently for the veterans. You have seen legislation that had never been proposed for veterans. Again, we increased the personal exemption. We included a
personal
property
exemption?
tax.
What personal exemption
And
did
your
you?
state income tax. And your state income tax when you file, 100% disabled, it doubled. So, and you weren't even aware of that. The property tax freeze for veterans, some of you are aware of it, some of you aren't. It was major policy. The ranking brought that to me, asked if I would do it for seniors. I said, let's add disabled veterans. That had never been talked about, property tax relief for veterans in the state of Kansas, ever.
So
And
why
we
are our
did.
taxes so high?
Well, sir, that is a problem we need to solve for all Kansans, not just the veterans. So thank you.
This would be a great step in helping the veterans.
And we are working on that. In fact, we will be working a bill, if we have time this morning, to expand the property tax freeze for veterans. So it was vetoed last year in CCR 8. We're going to see if we can get it across the line again this year.
It was written very well, and it should be passed as written. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Thank you for your service and for coming today. Thank you. Committee, that is all of the oral proponents. I will draw your attention to the written. We will move to the opponents now. Welcome to the committee, Jeff Culbertson. I should say welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, Senators. Thank you for your service, and thank you for hearing me today. And also thank you to all the veterans in the room and watching online for your service. I didn't know whether to sign up as pro bill or against the bill because Leavenworth County is all for veteran benefits. It's the funding mechanism in this bill we are against. If it was put back under the homestead program, there isn't any problem for the counties. But the way the funding was revised into its current version, it puts all its counties at risk. It says if the state stops paying for it, then 3 counties won't have to cover it anymore, but 102 still will. This raises the property taxes on everyone else that isn't a disabled veteran in those counties. Also, the way the program works, the other 3 counties that would still be out a year's worth of taxes. That's about $3 million for Leavenworth County, and that's not including the schools and other taxing entities. We would have to know they discontinued the program before January 1st of the year they announced they would stop paying for it. We think also it needs caps on income and house values. We've had disabled veterans reach out to us on this issue and told us they would qualify for this benefit, but they make over $100,000 a year and live in a $500,000 house, and they don't feel they should take it. But they totally agree with us that lower income vets should get this relief, which is another reason we feel just expanding the homestead program would work better. It already covers disabled veterans' taxes now, just raise the limits. I'm totally upset with our federal government giving money away to foreign countries before they take care of our own veterans. But if we could do something at the local level, then we should. We just can't further negatively impact the finances of people already struggling to meet their expenses to do it. We need property tax relief for everyone, not shift taxes from one group to another, which is why I think Article 11, Section 1 in the Constitution tries to protect against that. In closing, I just wanted to ask the veterans here today lobbying for this bill, why are you trying to pass a bill that says if the state stops paying for it, then you lose this benefit? Because the state has a history of discontinuing payments on programs. Ask them to put it under the expanded homestead program, and then you probably won't lose it. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you, Jeff. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Our next conferee, Greg McKinley. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you for letting me be here. I'm Riley County Commissioner. We have submitted a written testimony, which you should have. I realize speaking out against a veterans bill comes out as being against mom and apple pie. We're certainly not against veterans. There are plenty of veterans in Riley County and neighboring Gary County and all across the state. And I agree, veterans back in the 70s and 80s, they were treated disgustingly. We're finally getting back to where we honor veterans, and that's great. But in this bill, if one group doesn't pay taxes, that means everybody else has to make up for it. This is already a problem in Riley County. In Riley County, 42% of the property is tax exempt. Senator Reddy can verify that stuff. She's not here, but she understands that too because she was on the city commission in Manhattan.
Senator Reddy is online with us, sir, so
she
she is
okay.
listening
All
to
right.
you. Thank you.
The written testimony from Leavenworth County also gives some numbers of the impact of this. The amendment does talk about reimbursing 3 counties for their losses. My response is LAVTR. The next legislator can pull that. And as Jeff said, that would disable this whole bill. It's been said we need to attract veterans to the state. And with the numbers that they're showing in this, we already do attract. There are a lot of veterans in the state. rather than focusing on one group, the tax policy should appeal to everyone. We need to draw everyone into the state. And then, in spite of all these questions, the bill isn't needed. As Senator Holland discussed these additions, and you've mentioned them now, the Homestead Act was revised to cover disabled veterans. And it was obvious that Mr. Proctor didn't realize what all that had done. The revisions also cover, as someone said, that's the state money. The way it's written, it's coming out of the county money. The counties don't have a lot of money. We're scratching all the time. The state does have money. If you need to expand the Homestead Act to further cover disabled veterans, that's good. There is, like I say, a couple of years ago, I don't remember when it was, that you guys, I know your committee did push it to add into the Homestead Act for disabled veterans not being limited by the original 700 to cover them all, which was a good deal. If that needs to be expanded, that's fine. But the counties don't have the money to pay for that. The state does.
So thank you, sir, and I'm glad you corrected the bill as it states now. It would be a county obligation. There was recommended amendments offered by the originator of the bill that would shift the burden from the county to the state. So I understand we heard testimony earlier that it's a perfect bill, pass as is. It should pass 100 unanimously. But we've also heard from conferees that it does need work. So.
And like I said, there is a provision to repay what it amounts to 3 of the counties. And again, though, the next legislator can change that. And the way it's written, then the benefit would disappear. But if it's kept in the Homestead Act, the state has the money to fund those things. And also having 2 different systems set up, I'm sure is going to cause confusion.
Yes, and I would point out to everybody, this is the process. That's what's great about this. You have 165 set of eyes looking at it. And so no bill, you know, they get changed along the way sometimes. Very uniquely, there are some bills that go through as introduced. But this is the process, the vetting of the bills, and this is what we appreciate and work for. Committee, any questions? Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. So you are from Riley County, is that?
Yeah, I'm a county commissioner in Riley County.
So has Riley County received any economic development incentives around any businesses or in your county from the state?
Yeah, there is economic development money that comes through.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. My point being, Madam Chair, we have all kinds of sales, income, and property tax exemptions for businesses. We have economic development incentives that everyone pays for, and in my opinion, picks winners and losers. And I can think of no other debt that we owe than to the brave men and women who sacrificed everything. And I think that's a debt we owe, and we have a record of giving special financial incentives to businesses, to municipalities, and to me, I just think that it's unconscionable that we would not all chip in to pay for a debt that we can never repay to our veterans. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And as I said, I'm not against veterans. Right. And as I said, I wasn't against the policy. I think the Homestead Act through the state is a better way to go through this because the state has the funds and the counties don't. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. Would you come and state your position and provide written testimony to John so that we can get it on the record too?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Israel Waddell, a Director of Military Affairs for Junction City in Geary County, and I'm for the bill. Should I speak or just give my?
No, you have like a couple minutes.
Okay, I'll be real fast. So I am a veteran. I'm also a military spouse. And I'm speaking for myself personally, but I'm also speaking for these guys and girls. Well, Phyllis is the only one. You're a veteran?
Fine.
Right, but I'm speaking for all veterans, right? So every day I speak to hundreds of soldiers, right? And they're transitioning out. I think Fort Riley alone has anywhere between 22 and 2,900 soldiers transitioning out of the military every single year, right? And in those last 12 to 6 months, they're trying to figure out where they want to go, right? Some of them are from Kansas and they're leaving, right? Some like myself, I'm from Virginia. My wife's from Virginia as well. She's about to get out of the Army. We want to stay in Kansas, right? And I think this bill right here, this will be history, right? We're not a Texas, we're not a Virginia, we're not a Florida, right? But I think this bill right here will be a huge act for Kansas to say thank you to our veterans, right? There's just a few points I'll just point out why this bill is important, right? Recognition of service, financial assistance and health and well-being for our veterans, quality of life improvements, right? So I handle all things quality of life for our veterans in Geary County. And Geary County has the most veterans in the state of Kansas, right? And I think we're for this bill. We can take on that bit of money. Fort Riley's economic impact alone is $1.98 billion, right? Our veteran expenditures are $30 million, right? So you kind of, and that money is going back to the veterans, right? And where are we spending that money at? We're spending it in Kansas. I haven't traveled home since I got here, right? I'm spending that money right here. So that money is going right back into the counties, right back into all the localities. Yeah, got the federal spending and economic impact. You got the reimbursement to the counties. I'm glad that was added into the bill.
Stand for questions. All of those have been covered before, and
Yeah.
we are short on time. And I would refer to Senator Peterson. He had a question the other day of a conferee about the BRAC.
My question the other day was on the base realignment and closures. When the commissions come in, they look at things that reflect negatively on our military. My concern would you think the county would come after, well, if we get the amendment on, I know that wouldn't happen, but if the county would try and sue, or there would be look negative towards us for having mission sets retained in our state during the commission's review. I lived through one of those. I don't want to go through another one.
Yeah. So as far as a BRAC in Fort Riley leaving anywhere, they're not going anywhere. I literally just talked to General Meyer the other day. Right. I'm in all these meetings. I'm up in D.C. as well. Fort Riley's not going anywhere. Right. So therefore, since Fort Riley's not going anywhere, right, all those veterans coming out of Fort Riley, those transitioning soldiers, they need a place to stay, and we want them here in Kansas. Right. Those soldiers are well qualified, very skilled soldiers. They'll improve our workforce here in Kansas, right? Which is going to bring more enterprise, more money into our state. So, yeah, as far as BRAC goes, Fort Riley's not going anywhere no time soon.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Senator Blasey.
Just a quick statement. I appreciate your comments and welcome to you and your wife moving from Virginia to Kansas and choosing to stay here. We're grateful for that. It's always amazing to me how many people I run across that have either children that have moved to Kansas because they're being stationed to Fort Riley and they love it here and they want to stay here. So I think that's great. And whatever we can do to continue to encourage other soldiers to stay, we're all ears for ideas. So we'll love to keep people to stay in Kansas. I think we want to be a state that's welcoming to active military personnel and all veterans. So appreciate you wanting to be a Kansan.
Thank you. And that's my job, right? I'm doing that every single day. I'm advocating for Kansas, right? Every day I go in Fort Riley, I'm talking to those soldiers. I served in Texas. I was at Fort Bliss when I got out of the Army. Here I'm in Kansas, right? And I want to stay here. Texas has, we're not even going to count the amount of benefits that Texas has for veterans, right? But I think Kansas can step up a little bit, right? And today, whenever you pass this bill, this is going to be history, right? And then this is going to be, you'll face the residual effect of once this bill is passed, more veterans will start to stay here in Kansas. And if those 22.
Are you aware of the property tax freeze for
I
veterans
am.
right now? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And we need to hurry. Senator Baumgardner.
Okay.
Just real quick, when you are talking to soldiers and those that are going to be stepping down and retiring, are they concerned about homelessness? Because we know, I mean, we're talking about a property tax exemption, but what we do know is we have a lot of our veterans that are homeless because they've been taxed out of living in their home.
Right.
Is that a concern that you hear from folks when they're deciding where to move?
That is a concern. That's not a direct concern, right? Because during that last 12 to 6 months of your service, right, you're still focused on being a soldier, right? But there's still that dark hallway that you know for sure you're gonna have to go through of what I'm gonna do next, right? You don't know if you're gonna land a decent job, right, to bring in that income. You don't know what your disability rating is gonna be, right? So everybody's not gonna get 100. I know we got some bills out right now that are passed for veterans with 100%, but everybody's not gonna get 100%, right? You can look at the data. There's people at 90 to 10%. It's way more of those veterans than the folks at 90%, right? So therefore, they're gonna get a smaller amount of fixed income. We don't know what's next for us, right? But we figure, right, if we can get some of these benefits, like this tax exemption, homestead, I think that'll be the first step in helping us make some of those decisions as we transfer out.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Committee, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we do have somebody else that would like to testify so
Thank you.
quickly. I did want to work Senate Bill 80 today. That actually expands the property tax freeze for disabled veterans and seniors. It looks like we may not have time. Thank you.
I'm Perry Wiggins. I'm the Executive Director for the Governor's Military Council. I just wanted to address the Senator's comment or question, Madam Chair, if I could.
That would be fine. and
Yeah, this
provide
is
written
my focus, what I do for the state. BRAC, although the Department of Defense no longer uses BRAC because it became a negative term, we still have issues with force reduction and mission reduction. Fort Riley's a perfect example. In 2012, without a BRAC, over 4,500 soldiers left the ranks at Fort Riley. That equated to about 8,900 people when you count the dependents. It was a significant economic impact to our state. So the military value analysis, the equation that the government uses to evaluate the states, absolutely real. Absolutely every state gets a report card. And that report card's in green, amber, red. It's economic, quality of life, education, and training. So I would ask that if you have any questions, I will give my information. I'll put this down as a part of the record, and I'll make sure I can answer any questions.
Please do, and this is critical information, so thank you for
Yes, ma'am.
bringing it
Thank you.
forward. Senator Blasey, would you stand for?
Maybe I missed it, but what is our score?
We're not doing too well.
Where do we need to improve?
Federal impact aid passage last year was huge in education. It really rose the bar, put us up very high. The legislation you passed for digital reciprocity here in the state is huge. It's going to take us where we can meet the legislation of 15 days of certified vetting licensure for our spouses. That has increased our scores. The problem we have here in the state of Kansas is a perception. I retired out of Texas as well after 35 years, and I chose Kansas because of the people, because of those values you talked about, Madam Chair. I think there's a lot of room that we can do to improve for those scores, and I'd love to share them with you. It's really eye-opening when you take a look at what external audiences are doing. We're in a race with other states. Oklahoma is one of them as well, one of our neighboring states. And the fact of the matter is some of them are already near the finish line. Some states are still in the starter's block. We're not in the starter's block. We're running a good race. We got a lot of room that we can make up, in my opinion.
So if you would provide the committee with the list and the information, all of us would be,
Yes, ma'am.
I can't speak for everyone, but I think that the attitude of the committee would be to try to help as much as we possibly can.
Yes, ma'am.
You've seen that demonstrated with legislation we've passed recently and in previous years.
Yes, ma'am.
And Senator Reddy has a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, for some reason my video is not working, but I'm hoping my audio is. I really appreciate the proponent's testimony as well as the opponent's testimony from Greg McKinney to Perry, Phyllis, Israel. All of these are my constituents in my district, and I apologize for not being there this morning. So all of you are more brave than I am. I will be there this afternoon, so I would like to visit with them afternoon. I just want to let them know that I do hear their testimony this morning.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, ma'am.
Committee, any other questions? Thank you. Committee, we're going to close the hearing. Do you have something new to add? New?
Michael Kelly, Military Officers Association of America.
Would I say testifying for the second time?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for the second opportunity to be heard. The demographic information that the Veterans Administration puts out shows that Kansas is losing veterans, and we're losing veterans at a higher rate than other states. I will provide the chart that's a map of the United States. I'll provide it to the committee for written record. The second thing is, why should veterans get a tax break when other taxpayers don't? Because we bore disproportionate risk, physical risk to our life and to our future. We bore that risk for the United States of America.
So, and I thank you for your service. I thank you for your comments. And this committee has demonstrated that we do give you a priority, and we continue, but we have to do it diligently. We have to attempt, it would do us no good if we pass this legislation, it goes to the court, and we lose it on a constitutional basis. So we are doing our due diligence, and I hope that you appreciate that and understand that, because we have conveyed, we cannot thank you guys enough. We cannot, and we do not try to stop thanking you through our actions. We continue to find legislation to help those struggling, and our veterans are some of the most precious citizens.
Senator, thank you, and thank you to all the members of the committee. Thank you for hearing us, but we bore disproportionate risk, and many of us are moving out of Kansas. Those are facts.
We look forward to those numbers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, committee. You guys, we're not going to be able to work the bill that helps you today. I'll go ahead and continue the hearing. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
I just want to thank all of you. I have been privileged to deal with so many senators and representatives for the last 4 years. And I submitted my first draft 4 years ago. But I have never experienced the quality of people that we Kansans have for legislators. And I'm sincere about that. Kudos to all of you for the time that you spend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have, Mr. Slinkard would like to testify.
Can I just give this to you because I didn't sign up?
I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay. We will allow it. Mr. Slinkard, I'm going to give him a lot of leeway, you guys. He's my constituent. So, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I would give anybody in the room this respect. We need to. But he's actually my neighbor. He lives in Parker. So, committee, any other conferees? Seeing none. Okay. And we will close the hearing on 2036. Committee, I do not work bills the same day. We just don't. So I would turn your attention to SB 80. I would like to work that bill. Committee, Amelia, would you give us an overview? And would you mind giving us the position on SB 80 and then do you have the difference on CCR 8? Maybe we could just start with 8. Yeah.
Madam Chair, do we have a copy of the bill, or?
We're going to hand those out.
Thank you.
So committee, we do have a copy of, and just so you know, I'm surprised all the veterans left because this bill impacts them. I can't believe it. You guys walked out of the room.
They didn't know.
I announced it. I announced it. So committee, what happened is this committee did very good work on Senate Bill 80. We passed it out. And the House very graciously accept portions of what we had done. So CCR 8. So what is being handed out to you is a copy of CCR 8 and SB 80 so that you can look at the differences and so that we can derive at the best possible legislation. Amelia, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, to start with, you should have a copy there of Senate Bill number 80 as amended by the Senate committee. This bill, as a refresher, was introduced last year. It did have a hearing on January 31st of 2023. The committee did work the bill and pass the bill out of committee as amended. And that is the version that you have in front of you. This session on January 9th, the bill was re-referred to this committee. And if you look at the bill, this is an amendment to what we would refer to as the, depending on who you're speaking with, kind of the increased property tax refund provision that is in the Homestead Property Tax Refund Act now. Some people may refer to it as Homestead 2 or the property tax freeze or golden years, kind of depending on who you may be talking to. The provisions of this bill, number one, it would amend the definition of household income to exclude Social Security payments. Currently, the homestead definition of household income includes 50% of Social Security payments, excluding disability payments. So this would exclude Social Security payments from the definition for purposes of this program. The bill also would increase the appraised value of the claimant's homestead for their base year to $595,000 or less. Currently, the provision in statute is $350,000 or less. The bill would also provide an annual adjustment to that upper limit of appraised value so that it would increase after the first base year. The provisions of this bill also are explicitly retroactive, so they would be applicable back to the beginning of the program and would extend the deadline for filing for tax year 2022, would extend that deadline so that eligible claimants could still file before April 15 of 2024. Also handed out to you as the chair mentioned is a copy of section 21 of Senate Bill number 8. This provision was a part of the CCR, and there's a front and back to that page. Some of these provisions are the same as you will see in Senate Bill 80. The definition of household income excludes Social Security payments. This provision, this bill, this CCR though, did also increase the household income threshold from $50,000 to $80,000 to be eligible for the program. It also had a provision that excluded disabled veterans from the income eligibility requirement. So they would not be bound by the $80,000 limit. The base year appraised valuation of the homestead in this provision would have increased to $500,000 or less. It also has a similar annual adjustment for the upper limit. It also has the retroactivity provisions. And I would be happy to stand for questions if anyone has questions about the two provisions.
Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm looking at Senate Bill number 8 on the back with regard to the disabled veteran. What is the level of disability?
50%, Senator.
50%. Okay, thank you.
Committee, any other questions? Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have a fiscal note for the changes of this?
I don't think we have an updated one. Eddie will look for that while we're continuing questions. So, Senator Baumgardner. Senator Peck. You look so much alike. I'm sorry.
We do. I'm going to have to work on that facial hair. Oh, my gosh.
You talking about mine? Never mind. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question. As it relates to the retroactivity, it says that the very last, this doesn't take effect until publication of the statute book, and it mentions on line 26, on or before April 15th, 2024. So I'm trying to figure out if it doesn't take effect until July 1, that's way after April 15th. I guess I'm wondering, should that date be changed?
So I'll let Amelia speak to that.
Yes, Madam Chair, I should have mentioned, this is a bill from last year's session. So if this bill were to move forward, there may be, this was, that particular provision, members of the committee may consider wanting to clarify that provision to add tax year 2023 to the provision, as well as extending that deadline so that it falls, in 2025, 2026, however whatever the body decides. But yes, this, in addition, because this is last year's bill, the references to the 2022 supplement for the statute will also need to be updated to the 2023 supplement.
So in a quick order of business, committee, I'm going to make a motion that we allow the reviser technical leeway, such as amending dates and all other technical provisions in working bills for this session. So not just for this bill, but going forward. Would there be, it's been moved by Senator Tyson, seconded by Senator Corson, Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, committee. We'll continue on with the bill. Thank you. Senator Petty, and then Senator Reddy. I'm sorry, Reddy was in the queue before you, but please go ahead. And then we'll turn to Senator Reddy.
I just wanted to follow up. The question was asked about the disabled veteran, and you said 50%, but I don't see where that is reflected. Would that be a?
It's in current statute, the 50%.
Okay.
And so it just, yes, it's 50%. Amelia?
Yes, the definition that this provision is a part of the Homestead Property Tax Refund Act, and that act has a definitional section, which is, I believe, 794502, which defines disabled veteran as the disability of 50% or greater.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Corson, do you have, or Senator Reddy, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if this was, if there was already a Homestead Refund Act that was passed, how many veterans or disabled veterans, how many people are actually taking advantage of it? From the testimony, it seemed as though some of them didn't know about it.
Thank you, Senator. We'll get those numbers for you from revenue. We can't get those right now, but that is our problem with this program. We don't think most seniors are aware of it either. Believe me, they are aware in my district. I've written about it at least 3 or 4 times in my updates in the newspaper. We do need to get the message out that this program exists. Committee, any other questions? Senator Baumgarten.
Not a question, but a comment. I think what I hear from constituents, it's the levels that don't seem to be realistic for life in Kansas. So there are folks that want to participate but are unable to. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Committee, I'd like to move on this bill today. So I would like to make an amendment to increase the household income. I know we agreed and negotiated in conference committee and got it to 80,000 with 100% of the Social Security exempted. Committee, what are your wishes on that? Senator Blasey.
Madam Chair, we had a hearing today about offering immediate relief to veterans in the state of Kansas. They want relief today, and they deserve relief. The bill that you're asking us to work and push out today is only regarding future property tax increases, so it provides no future relief for veterans, for veterans today.
Accurate, Senator. I'm going to correct you on that. That is not correct. So this bill is retroactive.
To what day?
To 2021 valuations, and they could apply for the freeze from 22, 23, and 24. So it is a retroactive legislation. It is immediate relief for our veterans.
House Bill 2036, which we had a hearing on, could offer far more relief, or potentially 100% relief to some veterans.
Senator, we're working SB 80. We will work 2036 another day. We are on SB 80 today.
Okay, well, since we're talking about disabled veterans, I'll make a motion that we just strike on line 25 of page 1, a person who is 65 years of age. I will strike that, so it keeps all the veterans in there, which is what this bill is based on.
I'm sorry, but you don't understand the legislation. The veterans do not have to meet the age limit. okay?
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
No,
If our
all
legislation that we want to pass out today is regarding veterans, let's
Senator-
focus on that. Right now, you're talking about all
Senator,
persons.
please listen and please hear me. There is not an age limit for veterans to qualify for the property tax freeze. The only age limit is on senior citizen. There is no age limit. We exempted them from the age limit, and in the conference committee report, we exempted them from the income limit. So I would like to move that language into SB 80 so they will not have an income limit either. That's what we're working on, and currently we're working on the household limit for seniors.
Well, I'll still strike that line, because don't you think a single mom who's 30 with 2 kids trying to make ends meet, meeting the same income eligibility requirements and household property valuations is also struggling to stay in her home? We're seeing homelessness all across the state, this nation. Everyone's struggling.
Okay,
So everyone should qualify, so thank you.
okay. So you want to strike the 65 age limit for everyone?
Correct, so everybody will be eligible, meeting the income requirements.
Okay. It's been moved by Senator Blasey, seconded by Senator Clays. Discussion on the motion to strike the age limit, 65. And I do need a fiscal note on that. And I have 2 senators requesting that fiscal note. Yeah. Senator, what is the fiscal note?
What's the fiscal note on the underlining bill?
The fiscal note on the underlying bill was about 23 million, if I remember correctly.
Senate Bill 80, as amended by the committee, had a fiscal impact for, and this was from last year's session, so keep in mind these numbers would be updated and years would be shifted, but a fiscal year 24 impact of 12.86 million for 24, a 25 impact of 13.15 million, and a 26 impact of 17.91 million. The version of the policy that appeared in the CCR for Senate Bill 8 had a 24 impact of 27.6 million, a 25 impact of 28.4 million, and a 26 impact of 38.8 million. All of those numbers are negative, of course.
Is this based on Senate Bill 80's fiscal note, or is this based on Senate Bill 8's fiscal note, where the appraised value went up to $500,000 and income went up to $80,000?
So the first set of numbers I gave you was the Senate Bill 80. Those were in the teens. The one in the Senate Bill 8 version were the 27.6, 28.4, and 38.8.
So committee, any other discussion on the amendment? Senator Pett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And being brief, I want to ask for clarification. Are we striking the 65 on page 20, on line 25 and 26, or just age 65 for the surviving spouse of a disabled veteran?
This would be all persons.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I could support if we were striking the 65 for surviving spouse, but at this point, without having fiscal note, I'm very hesitant to support striking the age limit at all. Thank you.
So committee, we are past time. We will not be able to move on this legislation today as a result of the amendment. We don't have time. So I wish we did. I really do. I wanted to move this out of committee today. I don't want to lose the legislation, but we do have to have that fiscal note before we move. Committee, bring any other amendments that you have. We will pick up with SB 80 tomorrow. I also want to add to your list SB 29. We are going to pick up the discussion on it and the other bills that were sent to you by John. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Committee, thank you so much for your work, and veterans, thank you again for all your service and everything you do for the nation.